Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. On this week's episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about registration. Might be a little bit of a sore topic, but a few updates and maybe a little bit of a oopsie on our part based on something we talked about last week. We will talk a little bit about TCG Pocket, the new digital Pokemon trading card game that is coming out shortly, or if you are already in New Zealand, is already available. We will talk a little bit about Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. And then we're going to close out this week's episode by chatting about the results from the Dortmund and Joinville Regional Championships, which took place this past weekend. And then, of course, after that is all said and done, we're going to do our weekly bonus episode exclusive now to our YouTube channel members and also Spotify subscribers. So if you want to get a little extra content from myself and Azul every single week, you can become a YouTube channel member or subscribe to the podcast on Spotify. My name is Chip Ritchie and joined here as always by my friend and co-host Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How we doing? I normally ask you like how your week has been in this part, but I feel like I know how your week has been because I saw you all last week.
Yeah. So, for anyone who didn't hear, I don't know if we mentioned on the podcast, but I mentioned on my stream quite a bit because I was not going to be streaming as much this week. Went over to Chips, and we were doing some recording for the secondary channel that most of you probably are familiar with, the Uncommon Energy secondary channel. So where we do like the evolution series and all that over there. If you don't know, if you haven't heard about it until this point, go check it out. And yeah, we're doing some filming. Did a little bit of streaming over the weekend. Did restream the Dortmund Regional Championships. Streamed pretty much all of it. I think I missed like one round day one, but got up pretty early for that and restreamed that. Found some time to do that as well with all of our all of our. I'm looking at the top comment. Can they see this? Did you put the picture up there for people to look at?
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't unhappy. Definitely had a ton of fun with all the filming and excited to share all the content we made with you guys. Will be coming out in the upcoming months. But yeah, got a lot of recording done, which is great. And we kind of figured out our system a little bit more, the
We did.
workflow, which was a big deal. I feel like, and it'll just improve time after time to get that many more videos recorded each time.
Yeah, the evolution series videos take a long time to film because not only do the games take a long time, we have to do the opening and stuff, but like the deck building and like just the organizing the massive amounts of cards take a long time. So like I think the first day, the first that you were here and we were recording, we recorded some like other videos that were pretty short and that was nice. And then we recorded our first evolution series video and it took like 6 hours for just the one video. It was crazy.
Yeah, we got kind of into a little bit of a flow after that, and then the biggest thing, and this was like just a mistake for both of us to begin with. We didn't have like our in my head when I was like going through all of the cards for the first couple booster boxes for the first couple episodes. I just had them all like organized by type, but I didn't sort them by good cards and bad cards. And I still did go through like look through my bad cards now a couple times throughout the week to just like recheck, make sure there wasn't anything too terrible or too much better than I thought. Um, but once I organized my cards by good and bad cards, it's a lot easier to go through the deck building process each time. So I had some really good content for that coming out soon. And then you jumped on the Dortmund stream uh, throughout the week for day one and day two, which was fun to do as well. It's nice to have someone like IRL. Like that's definitely like makes it that much better. I've done it a little bit with like having someone on like Discord call watching at the same time, but it's like not quite the same experience.
Right.
Um, Having someone IRL with me is definitely a difference maker. But yeah, I really loved doing the restream again, and I'm really excited to do more of that coming up. It's really unfortunate that Joinville, there was no stream for Joinville, because like theoretically, I could have gone from, or we could have gone from like streaming Dortmund into streaming Joinville like right after, because I believe Joinville Top Cut was just starting right after Dortmund's Top Cut ended, or after the finals ended in Dortmund. So that would have been cool to like make that transition over and just watch more Pokemon. But yeah, Joinville didn't have a stream over the weekend, so was only able to watch the Dortmund.
Yeah, thanks for letting me come on with you again. It was fun to chat. It's like it's kind of fun to watch Pokemon games and just talk about them without casting because like what we're doing is not casting
Yeah,
really. Like a lot of people say like, "Oh, I'm restreaming my casting of these matches." And you tune in and it's like they're really not casting. They're just
Yeah.
hanging out, watching the game, talking to chat, which is good and fine. And I like actually really enjoy doing that and hanging out and talking to chat and joking around with you in chat and banning people for saying pheasant skibbity and stuff like that. It was all in good fun. We had some fun moments for sure. Um,
Yeah,
and
it
it's a
definitely is.
nice break of a way to like watch a game and like chill and talk about it like that and not be like dialed in super serious, focusing on like, the broadcasting element of it.
Yeah, yeah. You can actually like have some downtime and kind of enjoy the, potential for a play to happen or a top deck. You don't have to constantly be entertaining the audience, right? You can be part of the audience kind of a little bit more so.
Yeah.
Which is kind of that kind of I was gonna say casting, but not casting, but yeah, the way we are doing it, kind of just more watch party
Yes,
um
exactly.
content. But definitely exciting. We'll talk about the results from Dortmund as well. It's definitely I think it was like a good event in terms of like it wasn't just the same old stuff that we had been seeing. Good shake up.
Well, Zula, it was fun while it lasted. It was nice to have you over, but we're back into our normal lives, back into the podcast. And let's kick off the podcast by talking about some of these updates around registration and things that have been happening. It does seem like LAIC registration stuff has kind of been resolved up to this point. I do believe the final wave has come and gone at this point, if I'm not mistaken. Um, we did
Yeah.
see another tweet from Snow No Roman, who is posting on behalf of Copag, I believe. We did not realize last week, but plenty of you in the comments were very nice and quick enough to point out to us that the reason that Copag is not tweeting is because Twitter is banned in Brazil right now, which I think is something we both knew, but just like it wasn't in the front of our mind at the moment we were talking about like
Yeah.
why are they not posting this on Twitter? Why are they only posting on Facebook? It is because X is banned in Brazil right now. But they did post an update a couple days ago saying that they wanted to bring attention to an issue that keeps happening when trying to secure a spot. If you try to pay with one card and it gets rejected, stop trying again. Your bank becomes suspicious. Stripe blocks you. So it's like it seems like these are some of the issues that people were having that led to people being unable to register. But I
Yeah.
know like we have a friend, for instance, that was trying to register, was having some of these issues, but then he sent a picture in the group chat tonight that he was able to register for the tournament finally.
Yeah.
So I think it seems like a lot of issues have been resolved.
It definitely seems that way. That's actually the issue that I for some reason it only ever happened with LAIC, but I couldn't use certain types of credit cards when I tried to register for LAIC. It's probably certain type of card. Um, that's like the issue I had in the past. Did not have it when I registered this time around. And that's what I initially thought was just like everyone was having more people were having that problem that I had had in the past when registering for LAIC. But apparently, yeah, it was something bigger. But yeah, with the spectator thing happened last week, right? They opened up spectator badges last week, and there was nothing. I didn't see any complaints. I just saw people that people got in. I didn't see any people complaining about the registration. I assume it's all sold out. I guess I don't know for sure. But currently, it is sitting at 2306, so it's not going to hit that 9 rounds day one mark. I don't think for LAIC if it is sold
Interesting.
out, which is a little bit of a bummer. I'm assuming it's capped. Maybe it's not sold out though, because I haven't actually seen any like complaining about it capping quickly either on Twitter. I feel like the registration complaints have kind of died down in general, which is a good thing, I guess, if there's nothing to complain about, or maybe people are just tired of complaining and they don't think it's going to lead anywhere, so they just kind of stop.
I just went to try to register and I'm unable to register.
Okay, so we are
It
capped.
says unfortunately the tournament is currently sold out for the Masters division.
Yeah, so 2306 is the number, which means it probably will not hit 9 rounds day one. It'll be 8-4 at LAIC, which is kind of a bummer for one of the ICs to have like, feel like a smaller event. You'd think that they would have gotten like enough space to at least allow that threshold, the 20, was it 2084 or something, or
Yeah.
2048?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they definitely could have hit it. The Latin America Pokemon community is pretty like wide and like, pretty large, and like their regionals and stuff sell out pretty quickly a lot of times as
I
well.
feel
So I'm
like
sure like the big special event a lot of people would have been coming out to if they could have. I'm sure it's sold out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it feels like caps is like the only real thing that's holding back the Latin American region in general, and especially like Brazil. That's where like the majority of Latin American players are, or most for like country wise. And then like sometimes it sounds like from what I've like heard from people who like tell me in like chat and stuff, it sounds like some of the locations are sometimes in like awkward. places where it's like that not many people like they don't cap, but they
Hard to
kind of don't
travel
cap.
to.
Yeah. So yeah, the player base I think is there and growing, and it's just like kind of comes down to getting big enough venues in the right locations to really
Yeah.
have it thrive is kind of the situation there.
And then there was another announcement for registration coming up that today, the day that this podcast gets posted, will be registration for the regional championships in Stuttgart, which is taking place later this year. L- Less than 24 hours notice on this one is kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
And actually, if you're listening to this right now, as long as Alex Wilson didn't mess up the the timer again on his upcoming tournaments page, if you're listening to this right now, you have 6. No, how many hours do you have? 6 hours. If you're listening to this like right when it drops, it's like 6 hours from now when registration goes live.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you're listening to this 6 hours after the episode went live, you've missed registration, or you've hopefully registered if you wanted to register. So yeah, not a very long time window. And I think the big thing to like talk about here is like where was this posted? 2022 tournaments tweeted it. I don't know who retweeted it. I think maybe RK9 retweeted it.
Yep.
And I don't know if Play Pokemon retweeted it. Not Gaming Gen. Yeah, Play. I don't know if Play Pokemon retweeted it. The 2022 tournaments post. And then one thing I was curious about was just is the regional listed on the event locator on Pokemon.com, where they say you can find information for upcoming major tournaments? And the answer is no, it is not listed on the event locator. So that's pretty disappointing. Especially, I feel like there was a decent discussion about all this kind of stuff last week, and it feels like very little has changed because once again, 24 hours before registration goes live, it's being tweeted out by the tournament organizer, but only 24 hours before. Play Pokemon's not getting involved with any kind of retweets. It's just RK9 and the tournament organizer page. But you can't. It's really hard. I guess maybe my biggest thing is like, how do people find out that 2022 tournaments is the tournament organizer for this tournament? That's
Right.
kind of the thing I'm hung up on right now. How do you figure that out?
I don't think there's a way to unless you just know. You have to be in the know to know, you know?
Yeah, which is just like it's just a really poor process. Once again, anyone who's listening to this who plans to go to upcoming tournaments, go to ptcglegends.com/tournaments/upcoming. That is the best source of information that is kind of all in one place for upcoming major tournaments under TPCI. So yeah, go do that. Go bookmark that page.
They do have a little note on Arcanine now saying when it goes live, so that's good too, at least because that's
Yeah.
like a little bit more official of a source, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
they've had that before, but
yeah,
it's just like when that page is up is like kind of unknown.
right.
Like the Sacramento page came up like I don't know how the Stuttgart page has to have just been there recently because it wasn't there last week for sure. I haven't looked at Arcanine over the last couple of days, so maybe it came up a little bit sooner than that. But yeah, everything is just being done last minute, and there's no breadcrumb trail from like official sources,
Yeah.
which is a really bad thing.
My favorite reply to this tweet was right here. Katie PTCG said, "Tomorrow, that's so far away. I'll get bored and forget. You should tell only 5 minutes before."
Yeah. And I think the community in general is getting a little bit frustrated with it all and kind of voicing their opinions a little bit more loudly, which I think is a good thing because, like, you know, I guess like this is something that needs to change for sure. This whole process of registration information share and like I keep bringing up the term breadcrumbing, but like finding a way to like get from the knowing that a regional exists in Stuttgart, knowing when it is, knowing who organizes it, knowing when is the registration, knowing where you go to register. It's like really hard to chain all of that together from getting the initial information.
Yeah.
Um, it needs to just be better. So keep complaining. I'll be right there with you. I'll be complaining till the end until we get this solved. So we gotta do something. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. I say I'd hope it improves, but I'm actually just not sure at this point either.
Yeah, I'm not super confident, at least not this year. We'll see. Who knows? There's always next season, right?
I guess. Um,
um,
But yeah, we can move on from the registration woes of in the Pokemon community. It's not even just the Pokemon TCG, right? I feel like it's the VGC has to be having the same experience. I would assume stuff like
yeah,
that.
there may
So
be not being as it is kind of interesting, like how these communities, these online communities in our games and stuff work. It's like it does feel like at times the community en masse will like pick one topic to really latch on to, and that is like our big center point of discussion that a lot of people are really worked up and worried about fixing and changing. And right now for us it does feel like it's the registration, and it's like for good reason, right? There is a reason to want to have it improve and change. But I don't know if that's something that the VG community is latched onto at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, and part of that could be, like, I don't know how fast our tournaments sell out. So if tournaments aren't selling out, then there is, like, time for people to, like, figure out about stuff and figure out how to get registered for tournaments. I know some of their events definitely do sell out pretty quickly, but it might not be on the same level that the TCG, does. So that could be part of it for sure. Has it become as big of an issue?
Well, the next thing we're going to talk about today is Pokemon trading card game Pocket, the new digital TCG. So sort of like a TCG mini game. I don't know. It's like a
Yeah.
on par with something like Duel Links from Yu-Gi-Oh or Marvel Snap that came out a couple of years ago now. Just kind of an abbreviated, quick Pokemon trading card game experience. The early access, I don't know exactly what you want to call it. It's kind of like a beta almost, not but not really a beta. It's not called that. It's just the game itself is released now only in New Zealand. So if you
Yeah.
want to play it, which a lot of people have been playing it, you've probably seen some content creators playing it, seen some people tweeting deck lists of it. You just got to download a VPN and you pay for a VPN, use a VPN, and
Yeah.
you can get access to this game. And it's funny to see that even the TCG Pocket official Twitter account recognized this and said, "Welcome New Zealand and recent New Zealand transplants to the game."
It's such a bizarre release schedule. I think me and you talked about it a little bit leading up to its release because I was at your place, and when you told me the dates for everything, I thought it was releasing in New Zealand on the 26th, and then on the 30th of, September, it was coming out everywhere else. But it's October 30th that it releases everywhere else. It's, like, over a month difference. That the only thing that says to me is that they're not very confident in the product's current state to release it so far different. Because like, usually video games do that too, like big AAA video games, but it'll release in, like, Australia and New Zealand first, like, 24 hours before
Well,
everyone
do
else.
you know why that is?
Why? Well, it's because of the
Because of
time zone difference.
time zones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you could still release it on a specific time for everyone. Like, there's nothing holding you back from doing that. But, like, this is, like also but it does staggering it, like, for, like, initial server overload, right? Does maybe even make sense for, like, AAA games, right? Um, but for this, why is it a month difference? The only thing that says to me is that they're not very confident with where the product's at right now, but I haven't heard anyone really complaining about, like, any kind of bugs or anything. So it's just kinda confusing that it's, like, a month away until it releases everywhere else outside of New England. Is it a global release on the 30th?
As far as I know, that's like, I mean, that's the date that was put in the most recent trailer. So I would imagine that equals global release, right? If
Yeah.
that's the trailer that's being put out to everyone.
I don't know, just
Um,
it's just kinda weird to me, but
but it's been cool to see because I've seen a lot of people posting like the polls. It is very much like the pack opening experience is a big part of it. I saw something that said you actually get more experience for opening a pack than you do for playing a game on the of TCG Pocket. And it was something like people were saying like maybe should change, should be fixed, something like that in the future, which I wouldn't disagree with. But it was cool to see like there's a ton of like unique, exclusive, different rarities of cards that we had not seen in the trailer yet that I was seeing on Twitter and then YouTube videos for the first time. So that was pretty cool to see that there's a lot more. There's a lot more to the game than just what was revealed in the trailer initially. You've got a lot of different rarities and stuff you can collect in this.
yeah, I mean, collecting's gonna be a huge part of it. I'm excited that there is, like, a game to be played that seems to be reasonable. It seems like people are enjoying it. I know Mahone, Tricky Jim, has been streaming it a decent amount, and he's been playing it a lot, and I know he's been really enjoying it. So it's cool to see that there's some depth to the back and forth. I haven't actually seen a game of it play out, or I guess I did watch a little bit of Mahone's stream earlier today, actually. So I've seen a very little bit of it. Um, but I don't quite fully understand the back and forth of it yet. But it's definitely interesting, and it does very very much seem to be something like a Marvel Snap or
Yeah.
what was the other one you said? Duel Links, which is like basically like kind of
Yu-Gi-Oh! Mini.
yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Light.
And that's what this is. It's like Pokemon Light, pretty
Yeah.
much, right? Yeah, what's kinda interesting, like, if you look at these first couple deck lists Mahone posted, he's got a couple basics. He's got like one evolution line in the deck and a bunch of trainer cards. And then he posted some more like refined ones today where it's like one evolution line and then one EX, and then just like the rest of it is just like whatever the best trainers are in the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty funny to see that the game is like basically experiencing the exact same thing that happened in the Pokemon TCG with the release of base set, right? Where it's like it comes out, people are trying like a bunch of different like evolution decks and stuff like that, but very quickly people realize, why are we going to worry about evolving? Let's focus on whatever the strongest basic Pokemon are, and then throw the rest of the trainers that are good into the deck, and like just worry about it from there. It is funny, just like history really does repeat itself.
Yeah, they're going through the early stages of the process. It'll definitely be amplified or sped up quite a bit, I'm sure. I'm curious about the release schedule for cards with this then, and I assume it'll be like set based. I'm curious like how many times a year they plan on dropping new sets for this though. And this is a well, I know it is, right? It definitely is. This is a Pokemon Company product, not TPCI product, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Does Handscope literally do what old Handscope did? What the
Yes.
actual card did?
Your opponent reveals their hand.
What about red card? How many cards they drawn off red card?
Shuffle their hand into the deck and draw 3 cards.
Ooh, it's nerfed. They nerfed red card.
It is nerfed. And potion is old potion. Heal 20 damage from one of your Pokemon, not current potion, which heals 30. And Professor's research says draw 2 cards, not discard your hand and draw 7.
One thing that will definitely be, I'm sure this is something they will do. I'm sure the idea of nerfing and buffing cards will exist. Like maybe
Yeah.
that Charmander's 30 damage. Maybe it's a little bit too much. Maybe bring it back down to 20 or something, right?
Something that's cool too is that they do I think the game just like does some things for you. Like I've heard you complain about some of these things a lot in TCG Live, like setting up for a game. You have to go through the process, flip a coin, you have to choose
Yeah.
heads or tails. Like it doesn't just tell you you're going first, you're going second. In this game, it's like stuff like Pokeball, put one random basic Pokemon from your deck into your hand. If you play Pokeball, a random Pokemon from your deck gets added to your hand, right? Like there's nothing else that happens. It just does the rest. You play the card, the thing happens. You don't have to like flip a coin or like do anything else. Um,
The Pokemon Company took the whole programming budget and then for this and then PTCG Live got left with whatever they
yeah,
had left.
I'm sure they are completely separate.
No, I know.
One thing I saw that was kind of interesting was Jake Gearhart posted. Oh gosh, it's impossible to find a post note from him. Okay, here we go. He said, one of the things I like most about TCG Pocket is the removal of damage counters. They're unnecessarily confusing and do not need to exist. I think they should be removed from the main game too. And it is one of the things that most commonly, like I think damage counters in general is one of the things that like the most common rulings and interaction questions come up for.
Oh,
Uh,
dude, yeah. In my
it's
chat
like
all the time, people
damage
ask like,
counters, damage placement. Like it's just different and it's hard to keep track of. But this game does away with it completely.
yeah, and I guess is there really a reason why something like Water Shuriken wouldn't do 20 damage? There's no way to like interact with that on like an ability specifically, right? Like
What are you saying?
like for like Jirachi and Manaphy, there is kind of like a difference,
Well, it's
right?
just because they've been there. The reason there is a difference is because these two different things that do very similar things exist in the same game, right?
Yeah, no, I'm saying like for ability specifically, like in the like the actual game, like the TCG right now. Like, is there a reason that like Halucha wouldn't say do 10 damage to two of your opponent's bench Pokemon
I mean,
instead of
there's
place
not
10
like a
damage
good
counters?
reason that like damage counters could just not exist, other than the fact that they have always existed and they do exist.
Yeah, no, I know that. I'm just saying like Sableye being different than rating Greninja is probably good, right? That's on purpose. But like rating Halucha, could it say 10 damage instead of put one damage counter? Doesn't it say put one damage counter?
I think it does say put one damage
Yeah, I'm
counter.
not talking about removing damage counters completely. I'm just saying like for ability damage placement, it could just be worded as damage.
Yeah, I mean, but
Right?
ultimately, like Sableye could say place 120 damage on your opponent's Pokemon however you would like, right?
Yeah, then Manaphy stops it. We don't want that.
Well, maybe we do, but it's just different because the game is designed around the
No,
fact
yeah,
that
I'm
it
not.
exists,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. I'm not talking about attacks. I'm just saying like for ability specifically, literally ability damage placement. Like, is there a reason it
Well,
needs to
you're
be worded?
making I think you're like it's like you're adding another layer to it to make it even more confusing.
No, I'm just wondering if there's like effects that there's nothing in the current format that like would work differently if ability said damage instead of damage counters. That's all I was
Just
asking.
abilities specifically?
Yeah. Obviously, like attacks are different because we have like things that I know interact with that,
Yeah,
like
I'm sure there are
Jirachi versus
abilities
Manaphy.
that place damage.
Is there?
Probably. Let's see.
That are worded like Greninja instead of Halucha, like this Greninja here.
Let me see. Shoutouts PKMing cards, one of the best filters to search for specific cards in the game. I literally just typed in looking for text that has the word damage in it and Pokemon that have abilities. So we'll have to filter through a few things here.
Yeah, one
I don't
thing
know
that I
what
was
abilities actually place damage in the format, like
that's what
takes
I was
damage
just
counters.
it's just
Even
Halucha, right?
there's surely something else.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe there's not. Oh,
There we
Dusknor.
go. Oh yeah, yeah, and it is yeah. So I'm saying like if you switch Dusknor's damage counters to damage, it wouldn't like there would be no interaction that comes up that doesn't already exist, right? Like all of a sudden there isn't something that stops Dusknor is what I was saying.
Well, yeah, I don't understand why what point you're trying to make.
Oh, I'm just curious if there is. That's it. That's all I'm asking. If we switch Dusknor and Halucha to say do 130 damage instead of 13 damage counters, does anything change? Nothing changes, right? There's
Not
no
as far as I
interactions
know.
that arise. Yeah, that's all. That's literally all I was
Okay.
asking. I was just
Why?
curious. Well, I'm just curious, like, if we
Okay.
just made that switch right now, would it change any interactions in the game right now?
Yeah,
No, I
Sableye.
don't think so. Well, no, just abilities.
But
I thought of Sableye.
yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I thought of that actually came up in my chat earlier, we were talking about, I was like, what would competitive uh, pocket TCG look like? Was there a question? I feel like this came up. I heard it. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast. Was there ever a talk? Was there ever like an official source that talked about the potential of like worlds invite like this being competitive at major
I don't
tournaments?
not that I know of yet.
Okay. Yeah, how do you like we were
They got
talking
they gotta
about
fit they gotta basically every game that's come out, like even Marvel Snap and stuff. I don't know that there's a competitive Marvel Snap circuit, but I know like
yeah,
at first it was just the game came out, it had the in-game ladder system, and then like a few months later they started talking about like competing and things like that as like
yeah,
I think it's like worry about getting the game out there first, see what kind of
feedback.
yeah, see what kind of interest there is in it and stuff like that. And then maybe if it's like, oh, we want competitive TCG Pocket, let's make it happen. I think we might need to see a few more sets to like
Yeah,
the way
maybe.
the game looks right now. It doesn't look like it would be a super fun competitive thing. It does look like it would be fun to play casually. I don't. Neither of us have played it yet. I haven't played it. I
No,
don't think you've played it. I'm kind of the idea of like having to mess with the hassle of the whole VPN thing. Like it wouldn't be that big of a deal ultimately, but
annoying.
it's just kind of annoying, right? Like I would just
Yeah,
rather wait until I can just push a couple buttons and then boom, I have the thing on my phone.
yeah. Um, as far as the competitive stuff go, it did come up in my chat, and I think it would have to be some kind of conquest format for sure. Like, because like imagine like playing one game takes like what 5 minutes or something. I think it doesn't take very long to play a game. I guess you could like play a
Or
best
you
of
could do like a
three.
best of 5 or something.
But I think conquest would probably be a little bit. I don't know like what the how like the matchups feel like if they're like really one sided or not. I would assume because of the lack of depth in the card pool for sure, but just because you only have a 20 card deck and games are pretty fast, that if you have a bad matchup, it's kind of just like a bad matchup. But I'm actually not sure because there is weakness, right? These cards still have weakness. I'm not tripping, right?
Yeah, and I think it is just like plus and 20 plus and minus uh like it's like plus 20 plus 30 weakness, not times
Yeah,
2.
yeah, makes sense. It makes it a
Mhm.
little bit worse, I guess, but weakness is still probably a pretty big deal. But
Yeah, like Moltres EX is plus 20 weak to lightning. It looks like it's just blanket plus 20 actually.
EXs aren't like more weak.
No, which was something that was true in like the Diamond and Pearl era of the game. So like basics that could evolve were plus 10 weak, of stage ones were plus 20, stage twos plus 30, and then like level X's times 2.
Yeah, yeah.
And
We'll
then
have
the
to see
most
how.
powerful basic Pokemon were always times 2 weak.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. Like, I said, yeah, more sets is probably necessary, and then yeah, it does feel like it maybe be best suited for some kind of conquest format. For anyone who doesn't know what conquest is, it's like both players bring like 3 decks or 5 decks, and then there's sometimes banning, and then it's like you have to win with each of your decks. And
I
you can't
think
play with a deck that you've won with.
I think the most interesting competitive formats are the ones where it's like the least adjustments to like having to play the game as it was made have to happen. You know what I mean? Like I think a good like it'd annoy me so much like to watch like a Call of Duty Warzone tournament where the tournament organizer would like ban the use of certain weapons and then like those
Oh yeah.
weapons are just like on the ground, but people can't pick them up because they're banned. And it's stuff like that. It's like, you know, doing like all the extra deck building things. Like I would just I want it to just be as simple as like and I guess they could add it in the game to like have a conquest mode, right? Where you like
Yeah.
have a certain amount of decks. But it does seem like ultimately the purpose of this game, at least at the moment, is just like that casual, quick Pokemon TCG experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it is more geared towards the collector aspect of things than more so than anything. That's what they're trying to capture with this product for sure.
How much money are you gonna spend
Um,
on the game when it comes out?
Enough to get all the cards to build all the decks.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it can't be that much. Someone said that you have to buy uh New Zealand gift cards. Like, I don't know if that's 100% true. This is someone said in my chat. I don't know if they were trolling or if that was their experience with getting cards, but that sounds annoying for sure.
Yeah, that's not worth it.
Um,
I did see, I haven't watched the video, but I saw I think as Austin John plays, he was posting a lot on Twitter about how he was like he was able to unlock tons of cards by being entirely free to play. Like
mhm.
the experience of free to play seemed like pretty good. And it's like going from having nothing to getting a deck. So that's good. That's a positive.
Yeah, it's definitely good to hear. Um,
We'll be able to talk more about this though when we like fully get our hands on the game. So at the end of the month in October.
yeah. Well, I'm probably gonna try and go through the process this week of moving to New Zealand and streaming it. So I have to do all that, but I haven't like gotten to that yet. There's still a bunch of other stuff that I'm like catching up on, like just like looking at and playing with the decks from Dortmund
Yo,
and Joinville and stuff like that.
we should take a podcast funded trip to New Zealand. And we could post like a bit on Twitter of being like, I thought this is what we had to do. They said we had to transplant to New Zealand to play the game.
That'd be a good meme. That would definitely have been good. It would have been really funny actually if we were filming this podcast episode in New Zealand
In
like
New
right now.
Zealand.
That would have been really good actually.
Yeah.
We start playing Pocket. But yeah, it looks cool. It looks sick. It looks like a really good product, and it looks like the gameplay is really intuitive and clean and all that. So that's exciting to see. It's definitely not like something that's geared towards super competitive Pokemon TCG players, I don't think, but it's just not supposed to be that product, which is like 100% fine. But it looks like it is a very good experience for what it is, which is cool to see, and I'm excited to definitely try it out. And I did mention on my stream, I think if there is a competitive aspect to this, and there is ever a possibility of getting a Worlds invite or something, like, it's, like, played at the World Championships, I think I would definitely play for my Worlds invite in Pocket at least 1 year to try and get it.
Well, I mean, it's a digital game, so I feel like you'd be able to just do it all from home. So there'd be like no reason not to, right?
Yeah, I guess theoretically, yeah, maybe it would just be all played at home.
It'd be kind of crazy to be traveling to regionals and stuff to play 5 minute TCG pocket games. What if you just they just keep it best of one TCG pocket and then you just have 40 rounds?
Jeez, that'd be insane. A full round robin, everyone plays against everyone in the
Yeah,
tournament, and
full
then
round robin. That's it. You play 1,000 matches.
yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to guess that flavor text. But before we do, we do have to take a moment to thank our fantastic sponsor, Dragon Shield, for supporting us here at the Uncommon Energy Podcast. The new season is well underway. Make sure that you are protecting your cards with Dragon Shields for the season. Go ahead and pick them up. Use our code UEPOD on their site. It helps support us and it gets yourself 5% off as well. We love the Dragon Shield sleeves. We use them for everything. Shout outs to them for the sleeves they have sent me over the years because that is what helped us film all of the different uncommon energy videos that we filmed this week. So lots of sleeves being used there, and very durable, very useful. Like we were able to change between used one set of sleeves for like multiple videos and stuff, which was pretty nice.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Make sure you check them out. Appreciate the support, from them as always, yeah.
And now it's time to move on to Guess that flavor text, everyone's favorite segment of the cast, where each week Azul or I picks a card, reads the flavor text, and has the other host try to guess which Pokemon is featured on that card. We do have a few lifelines you can use. The lifelines are what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and read an attack name. We're on a little bit of a downswing after a little bit of an upswing. Azul and I have each missed in the previous 2 weeks, but I am currently still in the lead, 30-25. And I'm hoping to keep that streak alive here this week, keeping the lead. I guess it's not possible for me to lose the lead, but I'm hoping to
No.
make sure that Azul cannot catch up any ground here.
All right, Chip, hit me with the flavor text for this week.
All right, here we go. It digs holes on mountains, searching for food. It's so durable that being caught in a cave won't phase it.
Hmm. This kind of sounds like I'm thinking of like Pokemon that dig. So I'm thinking of Drillbur, or the other one that comes to mind is Bunnelby or Bunnelby's evolution. Whatever that one's called. Baneri? No, Baneri's the baby, right? The baby? The Baneri?
Baneri evolves into Lopunny.
Oh, Baneri evolves into Lopunny. So it's
Bunnelby evolves into Diggersby.
okay, okay. All right, so we're gonna have to use some lifelines here. What is the stage of the card?
It is a stage 1.
Could also be Excadrill, I guess, here as well. Um, Give me an attack name.
Iron Blaster.
Hmm, that's different. Now I'm not too sure on Excadrill or what was the other one? Diggersby?
Mhm.
Iron Blaster. All right, give me the flavor text one more time.
It digs holes on mountains, searching for food. It's so durable that being caught in a cave won't phase it.
Iron Blaster, though? What? See, that's what's throwing me off now is the attack name Iron Blaster. Excadrill or Diggersby have a blaster? I don't think they're blasting very much. All right, let's use the last lifeline. What set the card is from?
It is from Stellar Crown,
A Crown newer set,
newest set.
newest set. There is a Drillbur in the set, the one that discards the. I don't know if there's an Excadrill though. If there's a Drillbur, there might be an Excadrill. Uh, so obviously, I guess I'm just gonna lock in Excadrill then.
Locking in Excadrill Azul.
Yeah, I'm not
It
super confident
is
though.
it is a Excadrill is a metal type, a steel type in the games. So I mean it would make sense with the iron blaster part, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
this is not Excadrill. This Azul is Archaludon.
Oh, I would have never got that. This
I
doesn't
knew
have
this
a blaster either.
I knew
Where are
this
these
one was gonna be a
blasters?
little hard.
Is that one of those things where it, like, summons, like, an energy ball in, like, its hand thing? Like, it looks like it could do something like
I
that.
think
I don't
it's
know.
not its hand, but like so this Pokemon is meant to be like a bridge, pretty
Yeah.
much. It plants itself. So I
An
think like
arch?
it's like the um like the wires on a bridge that connect
Sure, yeah.
the top points. I think that that's what happens up here, and it can create like an energy field
Oh.
or something. Also, there's not a Drillbur in
Oh,
Stellar Crown.
wait, really?
Yeah,
When did we get that Drillbur that discards fighting? Oh, wait, that didn't come out recently. That was an older
that came out
Drillbur.
forever ago. Yeah, that came
Yeah,
out in
yeah,
Temporal
yeah. It's just
Forces.
it's finally good because of Sarah Ledge. For some reason, I thought it came out in this
Yeah,
set.
Sarah Ledge is also not in Stellar Crown.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew that one was coming out. I knew we had the Drillbur because I used it in a deck profile video recently. I didn't have to print a proxy. I had the actual Drillbur. For some reason, I thought it came out in Stellar Crown. Yep, I was never gonna get Archlydon, that's for sure. Although I have actually played with this card recently on PTCG Live, but I
Well, then you
I
have
didn't
no
attack with it.
excuse.
I didn't attack with it. I used its Metal Bridge ability to retreat Blissies.
That's
Pretty
kind of
good.
cool.
It was in an Articuno deck.
Was this out of a dude deck?
Yes, yeah, it was.
That makes sense.
It was a Articuno, Blissey, Terapagos, Area Zero, Archaludon, Trumpet, Paralysis, Monkey Dory deck.
How many games did that one win?
I got 5 in a row.
What?
You paralysis chain. It's good. Like no one's really playing Switch cards.
But you just have to learn how to do long division to set it up.
It's a lot of stuff for sure.
Well, Azul, better luck next week, or actually in 2 weeks, because
2 weeks.
next week I'm gonna just increase my ground so much further.
We'll see about that, Chip. I'm gonna
That's
put
the
my
plan.
outlet on too.
I don't think that's the hardest one I've ever given you, to be fair.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I was definitely never getting that one. Well, I don't know.
I'll
I guess they
never
all fall under that category of never getting it. It's the same thing.
I'll never forget talking to it was one of our early episodes. What was it? Like, yeah, episode 7. I I gave you this card. Let me read it to you real quick. We'll have a little bonus moment here. See if you can get it again.
All right.
When it gets down on all fours as if to beg for forgiveness, it's trying to lure opponents in so that it can stab them with its spear-like hair.
Dude, I don't remember this at all. Who is this?
It is more grim,
Oh, okay, yeah. Dude,
but
the whole line is so weird. That
it
whole
is a
line.
weird they are weird Pokemon, dude. They are weird Pokemon. But I remember I think like EUIC was maybe shortly after. And I was talking to Joe Bernard about the podcast, and he was like, saying that he like listened to the first few episodes, and he was like enjoying it. And he said he likes guess that flavor text, and then but he said that because this was before we had lifelines or anything
Yeah.
like that, so you got no help for this one. He said Morgrim was a vile card choice. That's how he described it. And I just have always
Vile.
remembered that descriptor vile as a vile choice because there's just no shot you were getting that one.
Yeah, no one's getting more grim.
All right. Well, we had a couple tournaments this past weekend that we can speak on the results of. One in Dortmund, Germany, and the other one taking place in Joinville. Let's start off by looking quickly at the results of Dortmund. And I think there's really kind of several big stories coming out of this tournament. I think like the three biggest ones, like we do have Dragapult winning, right? And it is kind of a unique build. Um, as all the cards are loading in, we've got the new Sparkling Crystal. I think everyone knew Dragapult would be a lot better this format with access to Sparkling Crystal. We saw it did okay at the Champions League as well. Um, so we saw this list. There was a few more Dragapults in top 32. We saw Rahul Reddy continue his absolutely insane run that he has been on after getting top cut at the World Championships. He was able to go undefeated in Swiss day one at Baltimore, undefeated in Swiss at this tournament in Dortmund, making top 8 at both of those tournaments, getting all the way to the finals. That's another big story from this event. And the other one is kind of the emergence and the dominance of Terapagos, because this deck was not even in the top 6 most played decks in day number 1 of the tournament. It was the 7th most played deck, just off the graphic, 84 players in the event, 5% of the day 1 field, and then it was 16% of the day 2 meta. This deck just catapulted into popularity, and it didn't have any super dominating finishes, but of course, Tord Reklev did sneak in there at the 9th place finish. He was in top cut, but did have the asymmetrical cut to play through. Did not win his asymmetrical cut battle, and so he did finish in 9th place with Terapagos.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of and it's cool to see all these mix-ups, change-ups happen. Terapagos was the most hyped deck. Not really. I feel like almost like Dragapult was the most hyped deck in Stellar Crown, like with the changes it was gaining.
Yeah,
It wasn't like a new deck. I feel like Terapagos definitely had some hype, but I feel like it got lost really quickly.
yeah.
And then now it's kind of coming back around as we make our way into Dortmund. Terapagos did it do anything at the Champions League? I don't remember. I don't even know if it got like a single top 16
Yeah.
at Champions League. I
There
don't
was
think so.
I remember you saying you like had seen several of them on stream, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It just didn't really convert.
Yeah, didn't go very deep, but yeah, it didn't like dominate the tournament. At least in Dortmund, it didn't dominate, right? But it like yeah, the conversion from day 1 to day 2 was kind of insane. A lot of like really really good players chose to play it, and I think the on top of that, the deck in general was definitely very undertested in terms of people's play against it. So I think across the board, anyone who brought the deck and had good experience with it and brought like a pretty uh, decently refined list saw probably a decent amount of success from that. You'd sit down and you play against pretty much anyone, and they'd be like, "Oh, I don't know how to play against this deck. I like played against this maybe once on ladder, if that." because it really wasn't a deck at all going into the tournament, right? It was like
Yeah.
kind of a deck that had been like starting to do well in online tournaments going into Dortmund, and then it definitely had almost like like it had really good day one to day two conversion, but it did kind of flop a little bit in Dortmund in the day two, right?
Yeah, and I wonder what the things are it struggled with in day two. I think they might have cannibalized themselves a little bit. Our friend Grant Manley played in the tournament. I think in day two of the 4 rounds, he played against 3 Terapagos. And he
He
came
played
in
against
at
a lot.
X2, right? And you have to go X2 to make cut. But yeah, Grant, for example, he's an American player. He was so confident in his Terapagos deck that he booked this trip a week before the tournament because he felt like, people have not uh, tested this deck enough. They've not refined it enough. I think my list is the best list. And he was confident enough off of that to book a trip. And it almost worked out for him. He did lose the winning in. I saw he tweeted that he prized both Pidgeot and his Chorus's Tenacity, which are the only 3 ways in his list that he can find one of his 3 energy cards that he plays. The only draw card in this deck is the one of Iono. So it's like he plays the one Iono. If he doesn't draw the energy, he just loses, right?
Yeah.
Because he can't attack. But he was confident enough in his build, and like plenty of other players did well with it too. Like, towards list a little bit more traditional. There's a couple research, a couple Iono in here. Also has the Blood Moon Ursaluna, a Thornton is a few options, but the basis is kind of the same. Terapagos is the attacker. We've got the support of the Dusknoir, um, and then the Briar as well to take, big swing turns.
Yeah, and then we saw there's a lot to like work off with these as well, and we'll take a look at the Joinville list here in a second as well. But like the Schultz brothers, Philip and Robin, both played a list with Reggie Drago VSTAR, which is something that I actually saw on the Champions League stream. There was a player playing a Reggie Drago build just for its Legacy Star. It's basically just in there for Legacy Star, and this build is kind of cool as well. There's the Unfair Stamp in there, and every time I play against Unfair Stamp or play it in this format, it feels really powerful, but finding the right deck to play it in feels tough. And I don't know if it is this deck, but yeah, being able to use Unfair Stamp twice does sound kind of cool, I guess, which you can do with the Legacy Star. But the Legacy Star is kind of like a late game closer. Like if you have Pheasant Jeopardy in play with a Regidrago V Star sitting there with Legacy Star, like if you're ahead, how do you lose? You probably don't.
Why
You
is
probably just
the
win.
Reggie Drago better than a 1/1
Darkrai.
Darkrai?
Because Darkrai only gets items is like I guess the main thing, but your items are your most powerful cards, kind of like
Yeah,
stretchers
but
and
then,
counter
like, can you
cancers.
ever get screwed by milling good stuff with Legacy Star, I wonder?
I think you're just using it to literally win the game most times.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
so it doesn't like if you, it's either you win or you lose because Legacy Star like screws you over. So it doesn't really matter if it's the end game. And you do have like the bench space for it at the end of the game. I think like Arceus V Star could be an interesting inclusion as well for like the same reason. The thing with Arceus though is like it seems like you don't have bench space turn one. So the Arceus would come down turn two, and then you'd be like star birthing on turn three or turn four
You know
with the
what could be
Arceus to
kinda
close out
cool in it?
games. What do you got? It's back. The Ivy Star. Hey, and then with
The
Unfair Stamp,
Leafeon V-Star, hold up.
you get that makes the Unfair Stamp. It kind of like now you have both. You get the Gust and the Unfair Stamp on the same turn.
Well, I mean, you can also Unfair Stamp plus Boss in the same turn, so
And Briar.
and Briar. Okay,
Oh,
Unfair Stamp, Counter Catcher, Briar.
Briar. Well, okay, yeah, sure. What if we're winning? Sometimes we're
True,
winning.
true. That's where Leafeon comes in.
Yeah. Honestly, there is like a lot of decks right now that just don't have a V Star power. Well, maybe there's not as many as I think. There's a couple. This was definitely one of them. The Terapagos deck doesn't have a V Star power, so we see like the Reggie Dragos in here. But like, yeah, you could get there in there with the Leafeon. Maybe the Darkrai is better just because like lesser tree cost doesn't actually just mill your deck. So in like the mid game use, it would be a little bit less costly. But I think
Yeah, I
there's a
mean,
lot of builds to look at moving forward,
there
right? There's a lot of
definitely
different
is,
things.
and I totally expect this deck to increase in play heading into the Louisville Regional Championships, and then
Yeah.
there's the Lima special event this weekend. We could see a little bit of an impact there. I mean, there's like this list that has a Luxray and a Reversal Energy. That's pretty cool. There's definitely a lot of unique things you can do with this. So, and that's like usually I've talked about this before. We've talked about it before. Like with a new deck, a new archetype, usually what it takes for it to really, when it's like less straightforward deck strategy to use, sometimes like the combo is clear, right? But sometimes it's like you have to figure out like exactly what the best counts are, what the best way to play the deck is. A lot of times, what it takes is for someone to have a good tournament run with it. The lists get out there, and now more people have a baseline to work with, and that's I think what Joinville and Dortmund have provided us moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. If there's not like initial set release hype, which for Terapagos there wasn't like a ton, I feel like, then it does take like an actual result to pop up. Because I think another deck that will gain a lot of popularity moving forward will be the Dragapult from Ryuki, right? That way to play Dragapult. I think we're going to see a lot less Pidgeots in Dragapult moving forward. I think we're going to see a lot more very similar builds to this being like probably the way to play Dragapult. And I have played with this build. I played with it today. This definitely feels like the best way to play Dragapult. Like it doesn't have any engine in there, like B Barrel, like Pidgeot, which is like I don't know why it is, but I think it's just because like people don't completely look at the game the correct way in the Pokemon TCG. I think it's like a big turn off when people see this list. They're like, oh, but each turn I don't have my quick search or my B Barrel to draw or my Noctowl to find two cards. It's like the only thing that matters is are we winning more games? And this definitely feels like it wins more games than any other build of Dragapult I've played with so far in this format. So it definitely feels like the best way to play Dragapult. You just gotta, play it and understand how to play this build, and you'll probably have more success with this build of Dragapult than other builds. But yeah, it definitely feels like a step above everything else I played as far as Dragapult goes. And like when you watch the games, it looked like it was like a step above basically every other Dragapult build as well. So I think this will keep Dragapult around. Like this build being discovered and doing well will actually solidify Dragapult as I don't know, a deck in the meta, I guess. I think if this hadn't happened, I think we would have seen Dragapult kind of die off until this build had kind of come around, I feel like. Because Dragapult actually had like a bad conversion. It was like went from 10% to like 5%, I think, in Dortmund overall. Like its overall conversion rate was not great.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you say that you liked this version of the deck a lot better because like my kind of first reaction to this winning was like, okay, yeah, that deck is cool, but I like a lot of these other Dragapult lists a lot better, like with the Pidgeot and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
it's
mean, I
kind of
just
interesting to hear because it's just like it just feels like a deck. It's like, okay, I think this deck probably has like one of the better early games of a Dragapult list, right? But it feels like after that, like first attack, I mean, usually that Dragapult's gonna be sustained for a turn, against most matchups, maybe except for, like, Raging Bolt.
yeah.
I feel like, making your next attacker can be kind of a struggle.
I mean, it's about as much of a struggle as it is with the Pidgeot. The thing is you have to invest so many resources into getting the thing is like with Pidgeot decks, it's like you candy out your Pidgeot, but your first quick search and maybe your second quick search doesn't actually do anything if you just didn't have the Pidgeot there to begin with, because it finds your candy for your Dragapult, or it finds your energy that you could have found if you didn't find your candy off your Arven for the Pidgeot, right?
Right.
So the first couple quick searches with decks like Dragapult sometimes don't do anything. It's different compared to Charizard because once you set up the first Charizard, you're so much further down the line. Like it does so much more for you to get the first Charizard online that
And
your
also
quick
because
searches are less.
Charizard gets you the energy itself as well.
Yeah,
That's, like, another part
exactly.
of that.
But your quick searches are like so much more quickly freed up to make the big combo plays. Whereas with Dragapult, it's just like, do I really want to Poffin for this Pidgey, or do I need to get like another Dreepy here, like to begin with anyways? Or it's like, am I really going out of my way to candy out this Pidgeot? That's like devoting so many resources to that, and now I'm gonna whiff an energy attachment for turn or something, right? Um, so yeah, I played a decent amount with the Pidgeot build. And I was playing it with like out Dusknoir just straightforward, and that felt the best way to play Pidgeot Dragapult, but this just feels so much better. Like not going out of your way to like set up this other Pokemon, it's so much easier to get to your first Dragapult, and then it feels cleaner to get into even to your second Dragapult as well.
And it was eventually enough for Ryuki Okada from Japan to get the win. What's really cool about this as well is that this does lock up a Worlds invite for Ryuki. Um, and that's not something that's easy to do in Japan.
Yeah.
I saw Ryuki tweet um their list or something, or they tweeted something about the tournament. I looked at their profile and stuff, and it's like they're someone who's competed in multiple world championships, but they have not competed in every world championship since they started competing. And I have to imagine it is because it is difficult to qualify in Japan.
I think even what was like a big name that was last year who didn't make was it
Shintaro.
Yeah, Shintaro didn't have a Worlds invite last year. And I'm sure under our system, Shintaro definitely would have had a Worlds invite for
Yeah.
sure. And even our system going into this season, Shintaro would probably also get a Worlds invite.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really difficult in Japan, like from the best of one at their big majors to just not as many majors to no, like, or I guess now we don't even have guaranteed ways to qualify anymore based on points. I guess we do still from winning events, which for anyone who doesn't know, last season, Ryuki would not have got a Worlds invite, but they did change that going to this season where players outside of the TPCI regions, if they play in a TPCI event, if you do win those events, or if you win a regional or a special event, or if you top four in IC, you now walk away with your Worlds invite. Whereas last season, Ryuki would have not got a Worlds invite for winning this tournament. Now this season, which is definitely a good improvement. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So it's really cool to see that already taking effect. It'd be kind of funny, like it'd be like funny how many more Japanese players are going to come over here and win our tournaments, or win the TPCI tournaments now. It'd be interesting to see how many more actually, like, if this like inspires more Japanese players to be like, all
Right.
right, this might be the best way for me to try and get my Worlds invite. I'm gonna go to these European or American regionals or whatever, more go to the ICs, whatever. And the ICs is top four as well, so you don't even have to win. You just got to get top four, and you get walk away with your Worlds invite.
And they get to play best of 3, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
multiple good things going here. Yeah, it looks like at Dortmund, there were just 2 Japanese players in the tournament, and they both did really well. Ryuki
yeah,
won, and then, Kaito, who did really well in our tournaments last season,
yeah.
got top 32.
Yeah, Kaito was like maybe the most efficient player last season at TPCI events. It was like Kaito, and then Kaiwin, and then the other player that I had taken note of was Dalton, as well. So it was like,
Machado. Yeah.
yeah, it was like the three most efficient players for how many tournaments they went to last season. Um, I think another thing we got to shout out here is Yella, third place,
Of
running it back with
course.
the golden go. Got second last year at this exact same tournament. Still playing golden go. I know played it at Worlds as well. Top four here. Um, it's definitely interesting to see decks like this. There's like players who like kind of like they like main their deck, right? Maining really isn't like a thing in Pokemon the way it would be in like something like a fighting game or something like that. But you do have players like Yella who not only play one deck, but also are very successful with one deck. And I always like to really see that happen because I think way too many people stress about deck choice. Like way too many players are not good enough to stress about deck choice. Yella is a very good player, but like way too many like average players don't quite understand where how they should pick their decks. But I think Yella's like a really good example of like if there's a decent deck that you just really like playing, you can take it all the way, right? You just got to put in the time and effort and really just work on the deck, your skills in general as a player, and you can go pretty far.
Yeah, I saw someone tweet a picture of Yella's Limitless page and say this has to be the coolest Limitless page of all time. It's just 5 Golden Go finishes back to back to back to back.
Yeah, we see before that Yellow was actually mixing it up with a couple different decks, but really found
Something about the string cheese man really draws him in, you know.
yeah, I guess. For sure. And also the deck, like it's not a deck that I really rated at all going into this format, going into this tournament specifically. But I think it's something worth taking a look at, right? Like you can say Yellow just knows the deck better than anyone else, which is probably true. Probably has the best list, the better list than everyone else, which is also probably true. But one thing I like to like have been kind of preaching recently in general at these tournaments, and I think another good example of this is Rahul. Rahul and Yella for what they did or what they have been doing, they aren't doing anything special. They're putting in the work and the effort, and that's really the big thing that matters. But anyone could replicate these successes in these ways, like which I think is like a good message to put out there for like the average player because I feel like people get so caught up with like overthinking like what it takes to be successful in the Pokemon TCG, but it is just like get better at the game, play a good deck, get good with a good deck, work on your list, play a good deck well, and then like the success comes with that. Like just putting in the time and the effort is like not all you need to do. And I'm not trying to like diminish their results, but like everyone can do it, right? Like anyone can do it. You just have to want to put in the time and effort, and then stop complaining about RNG, and then you'll be all good. That's it.
Yeah, and speaking of Rahul, another sick finish for him, getting second place. You know, the he has the most top placements at regionals and international championships of anyone without a win. And I was actually kind of surprised to learn that this was his first time in the finals as well.
Yeah,
This is the first time he made it to the finals. He's gotten the top 4 plenty of times, gotten the top 8 tons of times, but just has not quite been able to lock it up. I have to imagine heading into Louisville. I mean, if it's been working for him this far, like why would he change and deviate from Lugia now heading to Louisville? Maybe that'll be the one that he finally can lock down the win.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I imagine he'd probably just run back the same 60, and I think it's it's just a really good play right now. Lugia is just an insanely good play, and like Rahul's continued to take advantage of that. There's no reason for him to not just like run it back one more time. I feel like people, it's I was so surprised to see Lugia at 6% going into this tournament. I thought Lugia was an incredibly good play going into Dortmund. It being at 6% is like criminal to me when I saw that. I was like, why is Lugia at 6%? But I mean, if people aren't going to respect it as much, I feel like that is also like one thing that kind of goes with that. Like if its play rate is low, people aren't going to worry about it as much. Like keep taking advantage of, and I don't even know if people are going to respect Lugia as much going in, like still going into Louisville. Like I don't even know if it's going to get its, I feel like deserved recognition. But I would love to see Rahul get another top 8 to be honest, and like push for the win finally, and just keep cruising with the Lugia with the Raikou V, which is definitely the thing that I question the most with it. But I heard his interview at one point throughout the weekend, and I think that the Raikou V, it's definitely better than I thought it was initially when I looked at it. When he like explained some of the plays he likes to make with it and what the situations he utilizes it. So the Raikou V actually is pretty interesting. Um, and I guess maybe to like, I guess we'll talk about this in a little bit, but for Joinville, but Lugia did win Joinville, so Lugia is like doing pretty well, but it still feels like people aren't rating the deck appropriately. And there was another Lugia in top 8 here as well from James.
Yep, another Lugia. This one a little bit more traditional. It does have the 2/2 Cinchino with the tech Klefki in here. Klefki does just seem pretty dang good in the meta right now.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Klefki. It's something I shouted out a lot leading up to Dortmund. It's really really good, but um, it's really good, but it's hard to find a deck that works really well in.
The
Lugia is
best
probably the
example is
best.
definitely no, Gardevoir is definitely the
Yeah,
best,
yeah.
right?
Gardevoir's the best, and then it feels like Lugia might be second best because you have all the maneuverability with the double turbos and the jets to get into it on turn one. But it's really, really good. It's just it's not that many decks feel like they can run it aggressive. I think maybe Terapagos could play it, but I'm actually not 100% sure on that. Getting into the active on turn one would be kind of awkward. They don't play a ton of switch cards. So, yeah, it feels really good, but not that many decks feel like they can really fit it in the deck.
There's a lot of decks that you could consider like coolest deck in this top cut, right? We've got the Golden Go, we've got a Miraidon that we'll talk about here. And then we've got this Palkia Dusknoir deck as well from Stefan. So this is something that was popping up a little bit after Worlds. It ended up having a pretty decent finish at the um, Baltimore
Baltimore,
Regional Championships. Grafton, or was it Grafton or Hunter? One of them.
Grafton,
It was
yeah.
Grafton got ninth place with the deck.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it is a super, super cool deck, and Stefan takes the idea and gets a top 4 finish with it.
Yeah, it's still kicking as one of the maybe more powerful Dusknoir builds, and we keep seeing it have decent success, right? Stefan
Especially
here.
especially considering its play rate. Like, this is a very low
Yeah.
play rate deck.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it is. It's always like hard to pinpoint these decks, like how it feels about it, because they feel really good, feel pretty strong. Is it underrated? I don't know. I don't feel like anyone thinks this deck is bad. And I think it's pretty good myself. But like, is it? How do I even want to say this? Like, it feels like it'll never, even though no matter how good it is, its play rate's never going to be too high. It's like a very unique. It's one of those decks that's a little bit more unique, and that, I wouldn't say it's like I wouldn't, maybe it's daunting, like, looking at it, maybe it's daunting for people who wanna, like, pick up and try it out. That's, like, one thing I've, like, been trying to, like, figure out more is, like, why do people play the decks that they play? Why do people play decks? It's something that's really interested me recently because we see at this tournament day 1, was it Charizard and Raging Bolt were 17% of the meta, right? Like, which is just a lot. There
Yeah.
was a lot of Raging Vault and Charizard, and I don't think Raging Vault's that good personally right now. But if people are gonna play it, they're gonna play it. So that's one thing I always like, kind of like, am interested in is like, why do people play decks? And then like, one of my biggest question from this whole day one breakdown is why is Lugia 6%? That was my biggest question. I was like, the deck is so good right now. Why is it 6%? But if people are gonna play what they're gonna play, so I mean, you can't really tell them. They can't really force them to play Lugia, I guess.
Then we do have a speaking of Raging Bolt, one of them did make it to the top 8. It is
Oh, I
indeed
didn't even
packing
realize it
the
had the
Bri
Death Star.
Oh, and Dusknoir, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the Azul GG special right here. The Dusknoir in the aggro attacking deck.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of it. Yeah, I didn't even realize that this had the Dustnor in there. That's cool to see still. Kicking. But yeah, of course has the Briar, which is like the I don't know, the big new inclusion in Raging Bolt that doesn't I don't think it comes up that often in games, but it probably comes up a little bit more if you have Dusknoir in there.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. Yeah, the Dusknoir is an enabler for the Briar.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, solid option against like any of the evolving decks that like a Charizard, like a Dragapult, something like that. We did see an Iron Thorns make a pretty good run as well. This build playing both a Mimikyu and a Cornerstone Ogre Pawn in their list.
It feels so scary. Like, what if you it feels so scary to, like, open one of those against a deck where you just wanna shut them down turn 1 with Thorns. And, like, the
Yeah.
odds that you open one of those is, like, not that low, right?
Yeah,
Like
definitely. I mean, you only have 6 Pokemon in your deck. You gotta open
yeah.
something. If 2 of them are bad openers, like, sometimes it's just gonna be tough. This, I think, is the first competitive appearance, though, from Xerosic's Machinations. What do you think of that?
Um, it's probably matchup specific. I don't know what matchup this is, like, really trying to run into. It's maybe some deck out situation with the Ogre Pawn or the Mimikyu, I would assume, is, like, you just
Hmm.
wanna speed up the deck out. Um, that'd be my guess. One thing I really like in here that they played was actually the Enhanced Hammer. I don't know about cutting a Crushing Hammer for it, but I think that's gonna be a big tech in Iron Thorns moving forward to beat Terapagos. Like, to unless you're already just advantaged in that matchup, I guess I just don't know for sure, to be honest, but it's one of the tech cards I'm thinking about, like, that would be good in Iron Thorns to beat Terapagos. If they play the Vitality Band, you want the Vacuum, but then if you just run through their double turbos, you kinda just beat them.
In the final of the top 8 decks, we do see Glenn Bowers with a Miraidon build. This is something that popped up in popularity after the release of Stellar Crown with the use of the Area Zero Underdepths. You can use Miraidon to get the Mewtwo EX in play. It's not attacking, but it is a Terra Pokemon, so you can fill your bench up. You can take really big knockouts turn 1 with Raikou, basically regardless of how many Pokemon your opponent has on the bench. They like cannot play around Raikou super effectively anymore, like maybe people could in the past. And then, of course, you still have Iron Hands, which is one of the better attackers in the entire game.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is, like, the cool new way to play the deck, and I like the Secret Box as well. I played it with both, and the Secret Box feels really, really good. It just feels so smooth. Your turn 1 feels, like, incredibly powerful. Of course, you miss Prime Catcher sometimes a little bit later on, but to get that initial start is, like, a big deal to begin with, so
There are like no supporters in this deck.
couple, got a few.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we're using Arvin to set up. We've got the option of a research that we could grab off of, the secret box or force sealstone if we need to, right? And then we're trying to boss every single turn.
Yeah, yeah, that's the the route you're looking for, and then the Bravery Charm's in there as well, just protect our Pokemon in the early game against, the heavier hitter respond or the heavy hitters.
The
Um,
Broken Academy at night play to guarantee your generators get at least one energy card.
I don't know how I feel about the Academy at night. I've always disliked that card in Miraidon, but with Secret Box, there's a little bit more validity to it probably because in games where you don't need the Area Zero or when you
Yep.
just run into it naturally early, then the Secret Box has something else to find later on in the game, which can probably be pretty decent.
And then that's it for the top 8 decks. There were, what was it, an 11-person cut? Is that right?
They had 12. It was 12-person cut.
12
So we
person in the
saw
top cut.
yeah, it started to get a little bit bigger in the top cuts, and it was still an X and 2 cut, so everyone who went X and 2 did make the top cut. I think it was it getting close to, like, X and 2 not making it? I think it was, like, X and 2 was it got weird, though. X and 2 was guaranteed, going into the last round.
Here, we'll look
Um,
right here at Dortmund Regionals, 30 match points,
yeah.
12 players. We can look at the pairings and see in round 12 what the pairings kind of shaped up as. I would be really surprised if 30 points was ever really in jeopardy.
I think 1 was always
Just
guaranteed.
31 match points. Well, if one's
Yeah.
guaranteed, then they're all guaranteed.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm like, how far away were we from none being making it? I don't
Well,
know. That's
6
what I was
players at 31 or better.
yeah. And there would have been a 7th if Alberto had won, I think. I think Alberto would have been coming at 31, if I'm not mistaken, but Alberto lost the last round. Was that even possible? Am I tripping? No, I
What?
think yeah, Alberto played at 28 points, I think, and then would have come in at 31, or am I misremembering?
Alberto. We see a couple of people tying.
Yeah,
Bennett tying. Mateus here tying against John Eng,
yeah,
playing, I think, Drago, right?
yeah, Reggie Drago. No, yeah, it was guaranteed for there to be a 30 at the last round. I'm
There's
remembering.
Alberto right there. I was looking for it.
Yeah, yeah, Alberto would have got to 30, and there would have been another 30 point in the mix, which would have been then 13-person asymmetrical cut.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, we'll probably see top 16 at some point this season.
Yeah. Oh,
There's
definitely, I think.
enough
For sure.
tournaments out there, like, it's just gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, I think the only other super interesting deck, I mean, we talked about there's like all these other Terapagos decks. There is a couple Charizard hanging around in here still. The farther down you scroll, you'll see a lot more of the Charizards and the Raging Bolts. But then
Where
we
they
did see
belong.
Mateus here get a top 16 finish with Banette, a deck that they have been piloting for a long time
Long.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A really long time. And we saw a really cool match from Mateus on stream up against who was it? Stephen Mao. And in game 3, literally turn 1, Turo's up the Radiant Alakazam that was in the active and goes for the was it Shadow or Enveloping Shadow from the Shuppet, which says for a Psychic Energy, 10 damage, flip a coin. If heads, they can't play items from their hand during their next turn. And basically that whole matchup is trying to item lock the Charizard player out of Rare Candy. So they never get to a Charizard, if you can. And yeah, got the heads on the Enveloping Shadow. So it was a really exciting match to
So
catch on
sick.
stream from Mateus. And yeah, still playing this. Mateus has been playing this for so long and had decent amount of success. I don't think it's quite got a top 8. Hasn't quite got a top cut with it at a major, I'm pretty sure. But it's been close a couple times. Um, yeah, not quite, right?
Yeah, top 32 at Lille, and then top 32 at Dortmund, and then this year a top 16 at Dortmund.
Wait, so Dortmund was there was 2 Dortmunds in a single year. That's why it's so
Yeah,
close.
yeah, yeah. It was just in February,
Yeah.
but it was last season, right?
Yeah, yeah. Last season.
But yeah, was there any other decks you wanted to look at? This one was kind of interesting. Was like a Terapagos Palkia deck, something we've seen a little bit here and there. It's still
Yeah.
really difficult for me to like. To me, like Palkia feels like it would just be the way to go with an Aereo Zero deck.
Yeah, it almost just feels like like slightly different Raging Bolt. Like you can't attack turn 1, but you have the Greninja out. But at that point, it feels like the deck that Stefan played, Palkia Dusnor is just a better of those. Like if you want to take advantage of Radiant Greninja as much as possible, the deck that Stefan played is just the better deck to play.
Mhm.
You can do way more things with the Radiant Greninja, like the big plays with like Papa Dustnor on a Lugia V and then KO Lugia V with Moonlight Shuriken, stuff like that.
Sure. But yeah, let's hop over and take a look real quick at Joinville. You already mentioned it, but it was won by Lugia VSTAR. It was
Yep.
a Lugia weekend for sure.
Yeah, definitely a little bit. Won by Yurko Valencia, who I think this is his first major win. I want to say that's what someone in my chat said when we were looking at lists earlier. I just kind of assumed that he had a dub up to this point, to be honest, because he's had like a pretty consistent last couple of years, like post COVID. Um, but yeah, no dub yet. Does finally get it here with the Lugia, which he's been playing a lot of, I guess, alongside the Chimpao. And this is the tournament. Or I guess like the things you could point out about his list quickly. Real quick. He's running like the compared to like Rahul's list, the 2/2 Rat, the Thornton, one Mezagoza, which we haven't seen in a while. Has the Nest Balls in here as well. The card that's the big standout to me that is missing is the Squawkabilly, especially when the Nest Balls are included.
Yeah, Squawkabilly has seemed like a pretty solid inclusion in Lugia for the last format or so, like basically past AIC, I would say. It was probably pretty good at an AIC too, but yeah, it just really does up the consistency quite a bit. One of the things he does have in here, though, that we don't see all the time is the Wellspring Mask Ogre Pawnee X. Not everyone plays this, but it is. I mean, I don't know. It's not like a super surprising tech to see by any means.
Yeah, super powerful right now because all of the setup decks are cutting mana fee. The Dragapults and the Charizards just don't have mana fee.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty powerful right now. It's like it feels like definitely like a meta call type card because if Lugia is a pretty big threat right now. I feel like it's like under respected. And if it becomes more of a respected of a threat and all Lugias start including Ogre Pond, like stuff like Dragapult will probably have to put the mana fees back in to be able to deal with it. We actually saw, I think it was on stream at Dortmund, a Lugia with an Ogre Pond literally knocked out back-to-back double Dreepy. Like they took 6 prize
Yeah.
cards with their Ogre Pond. Like it just absolutely destroyed a Dragapult. So we could definitely see more of that moving forward. But it's like it's a pretty good inclusion tech call. But speaking of the Terapagos didn't really feel like it dominated Dortmund, but over here, two of them in top four, right?
Yeah, did a
Joinville.
lot better over here, it looks like. Both of them, of course, Dusknor builds with the Briar, all that stuff. Really kind of what you expect to see, I guess, at this point. Both of them with the 101 Pidgeot. I think probably the biggest story out of this tournament, like, just has to be that Cloth got top four.
And it's like a really cool build. I've actually played some with it, and it feels pretty good in like the current format. The Dragon Ball matchup is pretty bad, but Terapagos is weak to fighting. You one hit KO Raging Bolt with Mochi, Radiant Sneasler combo. You can keep up with Charizard with the Electro plus super effective glasses in here. So it's got a lot of cool combos. It's like a secret box deck, but secret box decks are always super cool, super explosive in those early turns. And you can get them with the cheesy Pecharunt promo donk that says if it's in the active spot, your opponent's poison Pokemon take 5 more damage counters from poison. So you can like go first, set up the brute, poison their active, put the Petron in the active, and deal 6. And if it's something like a Charmander, you can bench Radiant Sneasler and do 8. So yeah, it's just like a really aggressive pseudo single prize. You have a lot of liability. You have a lot of 2 prizes on your bench usually. Pheasantipity,
If I got
Squawkability.
dunked by this guy at the tournament and then I went and looked at his list afterwards, I would be so salty. It does not feel like it's that likely for it to happen. Like, obviously, it can happen, but, like,
I don't know. I don't think there's 4 ancient booster capsules. You have a Carmine, so you can Luminian dig. You have town stores to find. Like if you go for the Luminian route, then you could town store into the 4 seal stone. 3 switch cart.
yeah, maybe it's not that bad. Rescue board as well.
Hard to treat with the double turbo into the Pecharunt.
Or the donk. Pretty
Yeah.
sick. All right, you know what? I'm sold. You locking it in for Louisville? You're gonna book
uh,
Louisville just to play this deck?
that would be like the only reason I would go to Louisville is like if for some reason something motivated me to play a deck like this. That would be a reason to motivate me
You
to
could play
play
it at
to Louisville.
LAIC.
True. That's not worth going like going all the way to Brazil to play Klofta.
You might play, and then round one, you play against Alejandro, the
Mirror?
originator of the deck.
Dude, I just concede to him. I give it to him.
Yeah, a show of respect, of course,
Of
right?
course, of course. I will mention the I give them their props. The 2 Terapagos were playing the exact same 60, so I assume they like worked together. That's like a pretty impressive feat for
Yeah,
testing partner, testing group, whatever this is. I'm assuming these players did not somehow conveniently end up on the exact same 60. So I
sure.
definitely want to show them some props for pulling that off, playing running the same 60 as like some kind of testing group, and both getting top 4. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I think it's been a while since we've seen that, where it's like a testing group, and then multiple people from the group are in top 8, right? Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't happen very often.
yeah. It's
There was
getting
a
harder
time in
and
the game where it happened at every single tournament, but it's been
yeah.
a while.
In a bit. But yeah, really dope to see that for sure. Another Iron Thorns here, right? The Iron Thorns still I think Iron Thorns I think I'm trying to think of like what I put on my I think like the 2 decks, if I'm remembering correctly, that I put as like tier 1 plays on my like meta breakdown going into this weekend was I think it was Iron Thorns and Lugia. Those are like I think these decks just seem really good. Um trying to remember. Um but yeah, Iron Thorns, it showed up pretty reasonably. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up doing well. There was a few more in day 2 at both of these tournaments, kinda, like, just sprinkled throughout. As you scroll down, you'll see. But the only Charizard in Top Cut was in Joinville this weekend, and it was a Charizard Dusknoir build. No Bibarel, you can't really play Bibarel and Dusknoir, right? We've moved on from the Bibarel days, just relying on Pidgeot. Has a Thornton in here, the Maximum Belt for the Drago matchup, I assume, or no, Dragapult matchup, excuse me.
Yeah. What is the day? Actually, I didn't look at this at all. Could you go to the statistics and look at the day 2
Yeah.
meta share of decks? Charizard was number 1. Okay.
Charizard number 1, Raging Bolt number 2, and then Terapagos, Regidrago, and Snorlax all tied for third most popular in day 2.
My
Iron
guess
Thorns
would
right behind.
be the day 1 meta share probably looked pretty similar to Dortmund, except Raging Ball and Charizard held on to the top 2 spots, would be my guess.
Yeah.
Um, but so I feel like Charizard Raging Bolt did like okay in Dortmund. It did okay here as well, but I feel like Charizard had a tough go for being top 2 most popular at both tournaments. Only one top 8 spot overall.
Yeah, especially with like how powerful the deck has been
But we say
in
that,
the
but its
last few
results
formats, right?
yeah, we say that, but its results have been pretty mid since it got Dusknoir.
True.
I almost feel like this I feel like maybe the deck is just better without Dusknoir. Like, the more powerful version of the deck is probably with Dusknoir, right? Super powerful option, but the better way to play it might just be to go back to, like, B-Barrel or something, to be honest. Or, like, do, like, kinda what Tor did, get the Rabska in there, protect your bench more so than worry about some big combo plays. Just set up your Charizards safely and then attack with your Charizards.
All these Charizard lines are also like insanely greedy. Like everyone is playing 3-1-2 Charizard.
I think I saw I think it was, Nicholas Moffat tweet on Twitter, like, "What are we doing? Why is everyone playing 3-1-2 Charizard? Like, what is going on here? Why are we doing this to ourselves? No wonder Charizard is, like, not doing good." I forget what his exact tweet was, but it was, like, something like that. He's, like, questioning the Charizard lines that everyone's been running. And that's what the deck definitely got way less consistent, right? Because 'Cause you're going down to you're cutting a Charmander and a Charizard. Um, yeah, can we please stop with this 3-1-2 Charizard BS? There's no way it's correct. Moffat just wants to see Charizard succeed, and he thinks everyone is currently throwing by playing
Some of
a
these
3-1-2.
replies are funny. Like, so you have like genuine input, Ian Robb, 4-1-2. Okay, yeah, sure, that would be good. Smart, who played Charizard in Dortmund, says 3-1-2 is correct, IMO. And then we've got this person, 1-4-3. Honestly, seems like a good line to me.
Let's rock it. You're right. Play the 2-1-2. That's what Tor played at Worlds, right? Was a 2-1-2 Charizard.
Yes, yeah.
We did have the Rabska to protect our bench a little bit. I don't know if that is that big of a difference, but yeah, I almost agree. Like seeing like how popular Charizard is, and is he gonna have like it did get a top 8 here at Joinville. And I'm assuming it is one of the top 2 most played. Like the meta is probably tracked pretty similar to Dortmund, but I feel like something's missing. It can't be this popular and have this kind of this week of results. 'Cause I think Baltimore was almost the exact same story in terms of popularity to kind of conversion in terms of not just day 1 to day 2, but like uh, top 8 placement or asymmetrical placement.
Yeah, even looking on Play Limitless real quick, it is the most played deck in this current format. Most played deck, 11% of the meta share of all the decks, and it does not have a positive matchup against any of the other top decks except Terapagos.
I feel like
It
that's probably it's bodying Terapagos though. It's cooking them.
am
Oh, that
right
might
on.
maybe for Louisville then it's a pretty good play to be honest. Maybe that's it's only winning 45% against Raging Bolts? Dude, what is going on? Oh, and you know
Yeah.
what it is? It might be that Briar. The Briar inclusion
I
might be a
think the
big
Briar
swing.
probably makes a big difference in the matchup because, like, a big way you would win as Charizard is leveraging Radiant Charizard, and then now on those turns where you have a all one prize board with just Radiant Charizard in play as your attacker, Raging Bolt can Briar to take 2 prizes still.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty big deal. You do gotta get a lot of energy on that pawn, but also you can get like the 3 prize turn on the Charizard the turn before if you get a 1 prize KO early instead. It just lets you like more aggressively draw that 1 prize knockout and not feel as scared of like counter catchers and defiance bands and stuff because you'll have like the swing back with the pawn.
Yeah.
um, and what else is like a standout here? I don't know if there anything else really stands out to me.
Yeah, we had the block Snorlax in top
Oh
8
yeah,
here. Another entry from Zero Six Machinations.
gotta have him. Also has the Chi Yu in here, which I feel like is like almost like just a tech for mirror, but maybe that's not that bad of a thing. Stall seems okay
We got the
right
triple
now.
handheld fan.
3 fans. That's what a lot of people would run. I feel like 3 fans feels almost overkill, but I guess you do just kind of want them in the matchups where you want them.
Yeah, especially now with Terapagos, right? That feels like a pretty important matchup to have it. That matchup feels pretty free regardless of what you do, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like you can they what if you just chain Mimikyus on it? Can they handle like 4 Mimikyu, 3 or 4 Mimikyu in a row?
Dude, you just they play like 2 switch cards.
It's true. Like you get them with the block lax as well. Yeah. I
Yeah, like
think
I
you're
just
cooking
think
them.
you could probably win in a dozen ways in that matchup.
Yeah. I guess the big thing that stands out to me, of course, is like your Lugia matchup is so abysmal, but
If
I mean
Lugia is only 6% of the meta.
only 6%. I mean, if it's only 6%, self feels pretty good. I feel like there's got to be more respect for Lugia going into Louisville, but Terapagos is definitely be way more popular than it was. It's like at least double, like from 5 to 10% probably.
Oh, look at this list. This is kind of cool from
Ooh.
Taigo here, top 16, has all the energy types to use Terapagos on turn 1, the Crown Opal. Um, and then also, enough energy for Iron Leaves to be an attacker.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a, I don't know, what would you call this? A stellar Palkia box?
Something like that. I think Joe Bernard and Alex Dow played something similar to this over in Dortmund.
Yeah.
Dow finished top 64, I think. Joe did not make day 2. Yeah, very similar. Yeah, well, this one not playing a lightning energy, so no chance to use the crown opal attack, but does, of course, have the option of iron leaves here.
4/4 owl. That's a lot of owls. That's a lot of birds.
It's the best card in the deck.
Oop, man. A 4 fan? 4 what?
Most important card in the deck.
Dude, people were like calling out. I saw people were calling out Grant Manley's third fan rotom.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I don't know. 3 is a lot. Did I say 4? 3 is a lot, but 4's more.
That is true. Yeah, what did you think of Grant's list here? Because
I
there's
think
only
it's
one draw supporter in it. He's like everyone else is playing like 2 or 3 Iono and like a couple research.
yeah. And then yeah, Grant's just trying to be like
He's just
Grant.
like trying to set up Pidgeot and then search for whatever card he needs every turn. And he only has 3 energy cards as well.
Yeah, that's like I think another another standout from Grant's list is he went with the 2/2 Pidgeot, where I feel like most people went with the 101 Pidgeot. Grant went with the 202, just getting it out more consistently. But you are like cutting back on your like that's where you're kind of just like, all right, I'll play like one less double turbo, less draw supporters, but making sure I have Pidgeot is like just super important, right? I like out of all the lists, and of course, like people know that I like work with Grant, but I like Grant's list the most. I guess like the one thing that stands out to me about his list more is like the 4 Terapagos EX feels like a little bit overkill. I saw some lists that only had 2. I think like the Schultz list only had 2 Terapagos. That might be a little bit too little, but yeah, it's just trying to be as consistent as possible around your strategies. But of course, you do need like double turbos and you need to see cards as well as to execute your strategies. I did like the look of Grant's list more than anyone else's that I looked at so far that I've seen. Um, but I mean, there's a lot of things to take away from a lot of the builds, and then like moving forward, there's a lot of stuff for people to like look at and test with. But if I was going to recommend at a starting point, I think I would start with Grants for sure.
So let's recap the predictions that we made for last week. We only did our predictions based around Dortmund because there's not as much coverage in Joinville. But our first prediction was pick a deck to make top cut that did not make top cut in Tokyo. Azul picked Terapagos. I picked Control. And unfortunately for me, there was no control in top cut. There really wasn't much control at this event at all.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea how good control is right now. I have to imagine like Dusknoir decks in general are not something control likes seeing because it's kind
Yeah.
of like an uncontrollable variable. Um, so I have to imagine that's probably part of control's struggles, but I have to also imagine like a deck like Terapagos is pretty easy to take advantage of because there's so many like I feel like it has so many shortcomings and not shortcomings, like it doesn't have a ton of like it's got one energy type, special energy, 4 of them. Can only attack with Terapagos. I gotta feel like that's easy to take advantage of for like a control deck or a stall deck to like play around.
Our next prediction was how many area 0 would there be in top cuts? Azul said 7. I said 8. And there were 2 in the Miraidon deck. There were 3 in Tord's deck. So that's 5. And I
I think
think
that's
that
it.
is it. So just 5 copies of area 0 in top cut.
We need one more of those Terapagos players to get in there. What the heck? It would have been
I
8.
know.
It would have been the 2-3-3. Oh no, you guessed 8. I guessed 7. Shoot. All right. I need another Miraidon player to get in there.
And then the final prediction was what would the highest placing Terapagos be? I said top 8. Azul said top 16, and Azul went on one of his classic perfect prediction moments where he picked Terapagos to make top cut, but that they would lose in the asymmetrical cut.
Oh, I did predict that.
And that is literally exactly what happened.
Dude, I literally forgot. And we didn't like do anything. Usually when there's like 2 majors, we do combine the predictions with them as well. But we didn't like include Joinville into our predictions this time around. But yeah, that literally is what I predicted.
Way to go.
I,
Congratulations.
I cursed Tord before the tournament started.
Well, Tord cursed himself apparently because he chose
Yeah.
to ID in his last Swiss round.
Yeah. Definitely an error on his part, and he admitted it on Twitter. Like he said, like, yeah, I should not have ID'd my last Swiss round. Would have given him another chance to basically effectively play top 16 if he had just played it out against Yella,
Yeah.
but went for the ID.
If you find yourself in a situation where you can tie to get into cut, and then also if you lose, you get into cut, you should always play. There's no reason not
Yeah.
to. Give yourself an opportunity to play for a higher seed to not have to play an asymmetrical cut.
I guess the tie theoretically could give you the higher seed, but in this situation, that was not the case
Yeah.
um, at all. Yeah, but that's like one of the I don't know things that the community in general is gonna have to figure out fully. It's a lot more important to like take note of that stuff and your resistance and stuff going to that last round. Um, 'Cause, like theoretically, if Tord had really good resistance, then a tie there would have been fine because it would have put him in the top 4 seeds, which would have locked him out of asymmetrical instead of having to play for it there. So definitely relevant stuff moving forward for players to take note of. We always like bring up when players make questionable IDs across the
Yeah.
board. So
So we do have the Lima, Peru special event this weekend. We have no idea how big that event is going to be. I don't think there's any broadcast or anything like that happening for it.
it was the registration. The registration on wasn't even on RK9 for that, right?
Oh,
Or
was
was
it
it?
not? That I don't think it always is for the special events.
Yeah, it's not.
And then in 2 weeks we've got Louisville, so it's just right around the corner. The next
Yep.
regional championships. Um, we talk a lot about how most people should generally be locking in a deck a couple of weeks before the major that they're going to. So, I mean, we're in that
Yeah.
threshold right now for Louisville.
Yep.
Any tips or anything you want to say to people who are like deciding what deck to lock in right now as they're listening to the podcast?
I mean, like I was just saying previously, and I actually want to like reiterate this because I don't want to make sure I want to make sure I didn't come off this way about when I talked about Yella and Rahul. I am praising their consistency. I don't know how I sounded when I said what I said earlier, but yeah, I'm giving them props with their consistency. But I'm saying like they've so far they just picked a good deck. They're just playing well with it. Like I just wanted to like speak towards that as I feel like so many players in the game currently like overthink deck choice, like to a detriment, like to a detriment. Like the majority of people who are trying to be more competitive like overthink their deck choice to a detriment. We have really good players like Rahul, like Yella. They just pick their good deck, they stick with it, they keep playing it. You know, success keeps coming to them. So like following that path is not a bad thing. You see like really good players innovate all the time and do things like sometimes like special things with the list that they bring. We saw a lot of that from a lot of really good players with Terapagos specifically at Dortmund. But if you can't come up with something really cool or can't get comfortable with something really cool, just pick a good deck in the current meta, get good at it, play it well. And just don't overthink it. There's way too much overthinking with deck choice. From players who are just not, you're not, the big thing I think I've been telling people is like, you're not good enough to overthink your deck choice. Like, you just gotta like pick something you enjoy. And a lot of people do have decks they enjoy, but then they start second guessing themselves about, oh, but what if this deck's really popular? Or what if people start playing this tech card? It's like it doesn't matter. There's so many players at these events, and being comfortable with your deck is such a bigger advantage than like you realize or most people realize.
Yeah. Comfort is a very important part. I mean, most of the time when you talk to someone about like their round at a tournament, they come up to you and talk about their game. Uh, if they're being honest with themselves, which is not always the case, uh, uh, the most of the time, the reason someone lost a game is because they made a mistake.
Yeah.
And most of the time that people make mistakes is because they do not have enough practice or are not comfortable enough with their deck
Yeah,
in whatever
exactly.
given matchup they played against.
And even when you didn't make a mistake, well, you probably could have prepped better, right? Your prep could have been better. And I'd even like one thing I like to like head off here when I say that is I get it. You're not a full-time Pokemon player. But the 3 hours you could put maybe like you could put like, I don't know, 5 hours during a week per week leading up to a major tournament. You could be more efficient with your 5 hours. And even if you think you couldn't, you could. You can always be more efficient. You could always do more in those 5 hours. So the time that you have, you can be more efficient with that time. So that way you don't make those mistakes. Uh, at the tournament, right? Or even if you didn't make a mistake in the gameplay, your list could have been better, right? Your tech card choice could have been better, right? Maybe the initial archetype you decide to lock in a couple weeks before the tournament could have been a better archetype choice. But it all comes back to being preparing more and being more efficient with your prep, right? There's always something you can kind of put on yourself to have done better or more for basically every single tournament you go to.
All right, Azul, you got anything else you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
Uh, no, I think that's it. Good episode for sure. I'm excited to restream some more events coming out. So look out for that from me. I don't think there's going to be a stream for Lima. If there is, I will be restreaming it, but I doubt it. My understanding is basically none of the Latin American majors will have streams this season, as far as I know. Doesn't seem like they will. So, but Louisville's in 2 weeks, so I'm excited to be restreaming that.
All right. Well, we really appreciate the support as always. Thank you all so much for listening. And if you do enjoy, be sure to leave us a like, a comment, subscribe on the YouTube channel, do all those things. It helps us out a ton. We're actually very quickly nearing 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So if you want to drop a sub, we
Close.
really would appreciate it. And speaking of subbing on YouTube, check out our second YouTube channel. That channel is also very close to 10,000 subscribers.
We'll probably beat this one for
Yeah,
sure.
it'll probably beat this channel to 10,000 subscribers, to be honest, which I think we're both very happy with and excited about, to be honest. But yeah, check out the second Uncommon Energy channel. It's always linked in the description. And thank you all for your continued support as well. Azul, anything else to add?
Nope. Appreciate the support as always, and we'll catch y'all next week, Wednesday, 7 a.m. Eastern.